Vault Hunters, Borderlands 4 is filled with dozens of legendary weapons, but I bet you didn't realize how strange some of them truly are. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and these are 10 of the weirdest weapons you can find in Borderlands 4. Before we dive in, I just want to say up front, weird doesn't necessarily mean bad or good. It just means different, and in this video, we try to tap into that idea. I am a firm believer that any gun in the right hands and with the right build can be deadly, but the point is to show you what the weapon is, why it's weird, and where you can get your hands on it. In the case of Katagawa's Revenge, it's a sniper rifle that's both weird and insanely powerful. To find this legendary weapon, you need to farm Driller Hole, a boss you first faced during the main story quest Unpaid Tab. You'll find the boss at the end of Queen's Cradle, which is located on the west side of Carcadia Burn. Driller Hole has a yellow health bar and a red health bar, so prepare accordingly. With a little luck, you'll scoop up the legendary Katagawa's Revenge, a powerful Malawan sniper rifle. This always rolls with both incendiary and shock elements, but unlike other Malawan weapons, how it works is a bit different. That's because of the unique effect Storm Cloud, which doesn't have a tooltip at the time of making this video. However, it's pretty easy to figure out the effect. When firing incendiary rounds, as your bullets hit the target, a set of red orbs will spawn above the enemy's head and will arc down towards the ground, exploding and dealing damage to any enemies hit. When firing shock rounds, as your bullets hit the target, blue orbs will float near the impact point and any enemies nearby will take constant ticking damage. Both incendiary and shock perform incredibly well, it just really depends on what type of situation you're in. The Katagawa's Revenge can also roll a few different ways, but it's that unique effect which makes it a weird weapon. If there's one weird gun we think is getting a lot of hype, it's the Kickballer, a Malawan shotgun that shoots out a single high-powered explosive projectile that bounces around like a kickball. To get this weapon, you need to defeat Sludge Maw, a boss you gain access to at the end of the faction mission all charged up in the Fade Fields. Sludge Maw has a single red health bar, but he's a pain to farm because he frequently submerges, making him untargetable for a short period of time. With a little luck, you'll walk away with a shiny new weapon, the Kickballer. There's been a lot of hype surrounding this gun, but not for the reasons you might think. The Kickballer shoots out a single exploding projectile, and the bullet path mimics someone kicking a ball. It's incredibly hard to predict exactly where the projectile is going to go because its impact point is well above your cursor and has a lot of variability on the x-axis. That being said, it is powerful, and if it rolls with a Jacob's part, you have what many consider to be one of the best but most volatile weapons in the game. Having a Kickballer with a Jacob's part gives the projectiles the ability to ricochet when it crits, and if you lean into that for a build, you end up with some explosive results. If there's one wacky weapon I will absolutely go to bat for, it's Chuck. This is one of the most fun, unique assault rifles we've come across in Borderlands 4, and its playstyle is quite literally unlike any other weapon in the game. You can farm this from the Foundry Freaks, a boss located at the Pitted Stain Ripper Drill site, southwest of Fortress Indomita in the Idolator's Noose region of the Fade Fields. You'll need to fight through several waves of enemies and then ultimately 3 different bosses, but each boss has the chance at dropping anything from their loot table. Sal the Engineer, Hank the Welder, and Frank the Furnace all have different style attacks, but they all feature a yellow and red health bar, so come prepared. Eventually, you'll receive Chuck, a legendary assault rifle that can be a defining element in a build. Its stats are largely irrelevant because what we really care about is its unique perk, Pitcher. This removes your ability to fire the gun and instead, you throw the weapon, which explodes upon impact. Chuck can be rapidly thrown, each time consuming all 10 rounds, but deals huge amounts of damage in the process. Chuck melts everything, from basic rippers to elite enemies. The only really limiting factor is the ammunition, which you will burn through quickly. We even managed to get the Merv Tediore part that causes the thrown gun to also spawn 4 grenades on impact, and since you only throw this gun, it turns into a chaotic explosive frenzy. Just be careful when using the gun because you can kill yourself at close range. After really putting in some time to understand this weapon, we've concluded it's a must-have. If not for the crazy damage output, then the sheer hilarity of literally chucking your weapon. Sweet Embrace isn't weird in the traditional sense. In fact, I'd say it's a relatively straightforward shotgun, but how you acquire it is actually a bit different than most legendaries you'll find in Borderlands 4. In order to secure this Malawan weapon, you'll need to reach Moxxi's bottom up, which you'll discover during your main progression quest through Carcadia Burn. At some point, it's unclear exactly when, as reports are conflicting, you'll have access to the tip jar on the counter. If you continuously donate a big tip, eventually Moxie will give you a legendary weapon. There's 2 legendary weapons she could potentially reward you with, but the one we're after is Sweet Embrace. This weapon can roll with any elemental affinity, so if you're looking for something specific, you just need to keep tipping. What's unique about the weapon is its perk, Adoration, which causes the weapon to fire small exploding projectiles in a square pattern. Sweet Embrace can be difficult to use past middle distance, but from mid-range to close, this thing absolutely chunks enemies. With the ability to change its elemental affinity, you can deal with practically any type of enemy. Given how easy this legendary is to get, I'd say it's a no-brainer. Quirky weapons don't always mean guns, and in the case of the Spinning Blade, I think this is one of the most peculiar ordnance items in Borderlands 4. You can farm this from the Rippa Roadbirds, which are located at the Saw's Clench Ripper Drill site in northern Carcadia Burn. The fight consists of 3 bosses, each with a blue and red health bar. The bosses also remain airborne during the entire encounter, so prepare accordingly. With some luck, you'll scoop up the Spinning Blade, a Jacob's weapon that, on paper, is really strong. Depending on how it rolls, it also could replace, to some degree, the purple dagger that is currently the meta, or at least be an easily farmable stopgap until you get your own. Where it gets weird, and the whole reason we're talking about this weapon, is because of its unique perk, Juggler. When thrown and assuming you hit an enemy, it will arc into the air. If you manage to catch the weapon, you'll immediately get a grenade charge refunded, allowing you to use the blade again. Now, standing in the firing range, trying to perfect this technique is one thing, but in the throes of battle, with explosions happening everywhere, it can be really challenging to see where the blade is going to land, but like all things, practice goes a long way. While it's certainly not the strongest ordnance in the game, I could easily see someone mastering the technique and figuring out an entire build around this weapon. Sneaking its way into our weird weapons of Borderlands 4 is 7th Sense, a Jacob's pistol that I bet a fair number of you haven't come across. You can farm this weapon from Vile Ted and the Experiments, a set of 3 bosses that you unlock during the Below the Surface side mission, which you can pick up nearby. Once you unlock Moxie's big encore, you can farm the fight properly, which means taking on Ted and the 2 Experiments, each with a Vile health bar and a red health bar. Like all multi-boss fights, the best thing is that any of them can drop a legendary, so farming for 7th Sense shouldn't be that challenging. With a little luck, you can get your hands on the 7th Sense, and while it can roll a number of ways, including with different elements and weapon parts, the thing we really care about is the unique effect, Proprioception. As you hit enemies, you'll notice small orbs spawning above their head, floating towards the sky. When you reload, either manually or because your magazine is empty, those orbs will home back in on the target, dealing additional damage. The key here is to operate quickly, because if you wait too long to reload, the orbs will disappear. However, once you get into a rhythm, you'll hardly have to think about the effect, it just becomes second nature. If there's one gun in Borderlands 4 I simply can't endorse, it's Kaleidosplode, but considering we're talking about weird weapons, I have to talk about this gun. You can farm Kaleidosplode from Callous Harbinger of Annihilating Death at the end of the Craven's Nook Order Bunker. The boss has a blue health bar and a yellow health bar, so plan your loadout accordingly. With a little luck, you'll get your hands on Kaleidosplode, and while the gun itself can roll with different elemental affinities, that's really all there is in terms of unique variations. Its unique ability allows the weapon to fire out slowly gyrating orbs that explode on impact, but there's a bit of a catch here. The range of the orbs is remarkably small, and the orbs themselves move at a snail's pace. If it's not clear already, I really don't love this weapon, but in terms of uniqueness, there's few that compare. I'd love to be wrong about Kaleidosplode, and I'm sure there's some sort of fleshed out build out there, but at this point, I just don't see it happening. Frangible is by far the weirdest gun in Borderlands 4. Sadly, you can't farm this weapon, it's just part of the legendary loot pool, which is why doing things like opening red chests and activating as many shift codes as you can actually matters, because there are a number of weapons that this game considers world drops. Now, this legendary Daedalus weapon provides virtually no details about its performance. In fact, when you inspect the weapon, you'll learn nothing about its damage, parts, or really anything that matters. However, its unique effect, Frangible, is actually what makes the gun special. This weapon can roll with more licensed parts than any other gun in the game, and it's up to you to figure out what all those parts are and how they affect the weapon's performance. In the case of my Frangible, I know it deals corrosive damage, fires out cored stickies, or can toggle to a burst fire mode, and has some sort of PDR effect that allows me to throw out the weapon and turn it into a bomb. Now, the bad news is that it doesn't always translate into a powerful weapon, and in my case, I couldn't even reliably farm basic enemies because the weapon was so underpowered. Frangible does mean fragile, so it's very possible this is just a gag gun the developers included to be funny, which certainly qualifies it as a weird weapon. One of my favorite heavy weapons in Borderlands 4 just so happens to be one of the best. Streamer can be farmed from the Oppressor, a boss you first encounter during the main story quest Allot Process. At any point after that quest, you can head back to the Killing Floor's point of interest and farm the boss, which has a blue health bar and a yellow health bar. But keep in mind, this boss flies above the encounter area the entire fight, so plan accordingly. With a little luck, you'll get your hands on Streamer, a Ripper heavy weapon unlike anything in the game. This can roll with a number of elemental affinities, but what's most interesting about the gun is its unique effect, Delegation. When fired, instead of a projectile, the Streamer sends out a small orb that then shoots out an energy beam in a straight line. With the right positioning, you can shoot these beams right into the meat of an enemy horde, or in the case of a boss fight, deal constant damage to them as you chip away with other weapons. If you can build around ammo regeneration, you can actually extend how long you can keep this weapon active, which is the way to go if you want to absolutely decimate enemies. In the case of the Streamer, weird also means powerful. If there's one shotgun I think fits the description of weird, it's the TK's Wave, a Jacob's weapon that many in the community are starting to build around. You can farm this weapon from Rock and Roller, a pangolin boss found at the end of the Trinket's Crevasse, an abandoned auger mine in Carcadia Burn. The boss has a Vile health bar and a Red health bar, and I do want to point out that this is one of the more challenging bosses to farm in the game, mainly because it uses a rolling attack that can absolutely decimate you if you don't dodge it. With a little luck, you'll kill the boss and get your hands on the TK's Wave. This weapon can actually roll with a number of licensed parts, and I think that's actually the most interesting thing about the gun, in conjunction with its unique heirloom effect. When fired, the weapon sends out a horizontal line of gold projectiles that move along a sine wave pattern, dealing damage to any enemies in their path. When you combine that with something like an Atlas tracker, you can unleash the weapon's full potential. It's quirky, it's powerful, and it's absolutely one of the weirdest weapons in Borderlands 4. So there you have it, 10 weird legendaries we think are worth hunting down in Borderlands 4. Well, maybe not the Kaleidosplode, but at least 9 of them are worth hunting down. As always, if you appreciate the work we put into all of our content and you want more Borderlands 4 in your feed, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up, and consider subscribing. Don't forget, you can also join our community of over 15,000 members on Discord. Be the first to learn about new Legacy gaming content, talk about new games, and share tips and tricks with other Vault Hunters just like you. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.